Here's the brutal truth. When you stop chasing the avoidant, that's when they suddenly want you back. It's almost like a switch flips inside them the moment you stop giving them what they've been secretly craving. Your attention, your emotional energy, your constant need for validation. They don't want you because they love you. They want you because they've been used to the chase, the pursuit, the sense of power they get when they can pull away and still know you'll come running back. And the moment you stop running, the moment you accept their rejection and you let go of the need to win them over, that's when they realize you're not available anymore. That's when the game changes, and that's when they start to panic. Because avoidants don't fear losing you in the way you fear losing them. They fear losing control. They fear losing the dynamic that has allowed them to feel superior, to feel emotionally safe by staying distant, and to keep you in a state of constant emotional uncertainty. When you stop chasing, you break that dynamic. You remove the emotional leash. You stop giving them the power to dictate your feelings, and suddenly they're faced with a truth they can't handle. You don't need them. That is the moment they start to feel the pressure. That is the moment they start to want you more. And here's the part most people don't understand. The avoidance desire isn't genuine love. It's not the deep connection you've been hoping for. It's a reaction to your absence. It's a reaction to the loss of the thing that made them feel in control when you were chasing. They had the upper hand. They could disappear. They could withdraw. They could create distance. And they could watch you scramble to make sense of it. You were the one with the emotions on the line. You were the one begging for reassurance. You were the one trying to fix what they were actively breaking. But once you stop, once you accept the rejection, and you decide to move forward with your life, they no longer have that advantage. And in that moment, they start to experience something they've never had to feel before. A fear of being left behind. That fear is powerful. And it makes them act in ways they never would have acted while they still had you chasing. They may reach out. They may become affectionate. They may act like they suddenly care. But don't be fooled. This is not love. This is a reaction to losing control. The truth is, the avoidant doesn't want to lose you because of what you mean to them emotionally. They want you because you were a source of validation and a proof of their ability to be desired without committing. So when you stop chasing, you're not only breaking their pattern, you're showing them something they've never experienced before, that you're not emotionally dependent on them. And that scares them. It makes them want you even more. Not because they've changed, but because you've become something they can't manipulate anymore. This is the moment they realize they may have finally lost the one person who would always come back. If you're listening to this right now, understand that your power lies in your acceptance. Not in begging, not in chasing, not in hoping they will return. Your power is in the moment you choose yourself over their approval. And that's the moment they start to feel the absence of you. That's the moment they begin to want you again. But remember, when they return, it's not because they've healed, it's because they've finally lost control. The avoidant's true motivation is rarely what you think it is. Most people believe that avoidants pull away because they're afraid of love, because they're emotionally unavailable, or because they simply don't care. But the truth is far darker and more precise. Avoidants don't want love, they want control. They don't crave the intimacy or the vulnerability of a real connection. They crave the feeling of being chased, the thrill of having someone emotionally invested in them, someone who will always return even when they disappear. Avoidants don't want to be loved in the way you want to be loved. They want to be admired, pursued, and validated, and they want the power that comes from knowing you're willing to do anything to keep them. That's why they pull away and create distance. That's why they test you. That's why they disappear without explanation. Because the chase is their addiction. The chase makes them feel alive, powerful, and in control. And the moment you stop chasing, the moment you accept their rejection, you take away their greatest source of emotional power. When you accept the rejection, you stop giving them the energy they've been feeding off of. You stop reacting to their games. You stop begging for answers. You stop proving your worth. And that's when they realize the truth. They no longer have control over you. That's when the dynamic shifts. That's when you go from being their emotional puppet to becoming a person with boundaries, self-respect and dignity. And for avoidance, that shift is terrifying because it exposes the fragile foundation of their entire behavior. They've been using your emotions like a fuel source, and when you stop supplying it, they begin to feel a new kind of emptiness, one they can't ignore. Then the switch happens. You go from desperate to unbothered. You stop chasing. You stop trying to decode their silence. You stop making excuses for their behavior. You stop waiting for them to show up. You begin to live your life as if they never existed. And that's when the avoidant experiences fear of loss for the first time. Because up until that moment, they've been operating under the illusion that they can always come and go without consequence. They've believed that you will always be there, ready to accept them, ready to forgive them, ready to pick up the pieces of their emotional mess. But when you finally stop, when you finally accept their rejection and move on, they are forced to face a reality they've been avoiding. They might actually lose you, and fear is a powerful trigger. Fear is what makes them change. Fear is what makes them suddenly appear more attentive, more charming, more present. It's not because they've changed. It's not because they've suddenly learned how to love. It's because they are reacting to the threat of losing their emotional safety net. They are reacting to the possibility that the person they've been controlling may no longer be under their influence. And for someone who thrives on control, that threat can be unbearable. So they start to chase. They start to test you. They start to flirt with the idea of returning. They may even act like they've realized their mistake. But you have to understand the difference between genuine love and a fear-based reaction. What you're witnessing is not a transformation. It's a survival instinct. Avoidants are not designed to stay. They are designed to create distance, and distance is their comfort zone. But when you stop chasing, you break their comfort zone. You force them into an unfamiliar space where they can no longer hide behind avoidance. And that's why they react. That's why they suddenly become more interested. They start reaching out because they realize the chase is gone, and they miss the feeling of being desired. They miss the attention. They miss the sense of superiority they felt when they could make you question yourself. They miss the control. But here's the most important truth. When you accept their rejection, you're not losing them. You're simply ending the emotional supply that kept them alive. And that's the moment they start to want you again, because they're addicted to the way you made them feel. You made them feel needed. You made them feel important. You made them feel like the center of someone's world. And that feeling is intoxicating for them. So when you take it away, they don't know how to cope. They don't know how to handle the fact that they may not be the center of your life anymore. They don't know how to handle the fact that you've moved on, and in that moment, they begin to chase. But you must stay careful. The moment the avoidance starts chasing again is the most dangerous moment in the entire cycle, because it triggers something in you, hope. It triggers the desire to believe they've changed. It triggers the longing for the connection you've been craving, and the avoidant knows this. That's why they do it. They don't chase because they've suddenly discovered love. They chase because they're afraid of losing the emotional leverage you once gave them. They chase because they realize that the only way to maintain the illusion of control is to pull you back into the chase. They chase because they need you to validate them once again. They chase because they want to see if you'll fall back into the same pattern. And if you do, they win. If you respond, they win. If you chase them back, they win. But if you stay unbothered, if you keep your boundaries, if you continue to live your life without them, then you win. You win because you finally understand the true motivation behind their behavior. You win because you no longer allow yourself to be manipulated by someone who is incapable of genuine love. And you win because you choose yourself over the chaos they bring. So remember this: avoidants don't want love, they want control. They crave the feeling of being chased, not the feeling of being loved. When you accept their rejection, you stop giving them emotional power. You go from desperate to unbothered, and that's when the avoidant experiences fear of loss for the first time. And fear is what triggers them to chase. But you don't have to fall back into the cycle. You don't have to return to the chase. Because once you understand their true motivation, you can finally break free. You can finally stop being their emotional fuel, and you can finally become the person they can no longer control. Why do they suddenly want you? It's not because they finally realized your value. It's not because they finally matured. It's not because they suddenly woke up and decided they want a real relationship. The reason is far more straightforward and far more brutal, because your acceptance makes you scarce. When you accept the rejection and stop chasing, you stop being available on demand. You stop being their emotional supply. You stop being the person who will always be there, no matter how they treat you. And scarcity triggers their ego and pride. It makes them feel a sudden loss of power, and they don't know how to handle it. They're used to having the upper hand. They're used to being the one who disappears and still expects you to come back. They're used to being the person who can walk away without consequences, because you'll always be waiting. But when you stop waiting, when you stop hoping, when you stop giving them the constant validation they've been feeding off of, they start to feel something they haven't felt before: fear. And fear is a trigger for their ego. Their mind starts spinning with a dangerous thought: if they don't need me, maybe I need them. Suddenly the dynamic shifts. Suddenly they're no longer in control. Suddenly they're no longer the one who gets to decide when the relationship exists. And that triggers the narcissist pattern inside them. The avoidant version of the narcissist pattern is a specific kind of manipulation. They pull away to test you. They push you away to make you chase. They create distance to see if you'll still show up. They withdraw to see if you'll still give them attention. They do this not because they're confused or emotionally fragile. They do it because they want to see who holds the power. And when you finally stop chasing, when you finally accept the rejection and step away, they panic. They panic because their entire strategy has failed. Their plan was to keep you emotionally hooked, to keep you running after them, to keep you uncertain, to keep you in a state of emotional hunger. They want you to feel desperate. They want you to feel insecure. They want you to feel like you're always one step away from losing them. That's how they maintain control. But when you stop being desperate and start being unbothered, the avoidant narcissist suddenly loses their grip. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to operate without your emotional response. They don't know how to feel powerful without the chase. And that's when they panic. That's when they start trying to pull you back in, because they can't handle the idea of losing their emotional advantage. It's important to understand that the moment they panic, it's not because they've suddenly developed emotional awareness. It's not because they've suddenly realized what they've been doing to you. It's because they're afraid of losing the control they've always had. They're afraid of losing the emotional fuel that you provided. They're afraid of being ordinary, of being human, of being someone who has to actually earn love instead of demanding it. And so they try to regain what they lost. They start acting like they care. They start reaching out more often. They start being sweet and charming. They start showing interest in your life, asking questions, sending messages, making plans. But this is the trap. This is where many people fall back into the same cycle. They see the sudden change and they think maybe they've changed, maybe they finally love me. But what they don't realize is that the avoidant sudden affection is usually a reaction to their fear. It's a reaction to their loss of control. It's not genuine, it's not stable, it's not real love. It's just a desperate attempt to regain what they lost. When you're in the middle of this, it's easy to get confused, because their behavior can feel like validation. It can feel like proof that you were right. It can feel like proof that they miss you. And yes, they probably do miss the feeling of having you available. They probably miss the attention. They probably miss the ego boost. But they don't miss you as a person in the way you miss them. They miss the dynamic. They miss the power. They miss the thrill of the chase. And the moment you allow them back into your life without boundaries, you give them the chance to rebuild that dynamic. You give them the chance to pull away again. You give them the chance to test you again. You give them the chance to hurt you again. Because that's what they do. That's their pattern. That's their nature. And if you don't see it, you will keep repeating the same painful cycle. The key is to understand what scarcity does to them. Scarcity makes them insecure. Scarcity makes them feel exposed. Scarcity makes them realize that they don't control everything. And when they realize that, they get triggered. They get activated. They start chasing. But this chase is not love. It's panic. It's a survival reaction. It's a reaction to the loss of their emotional advantage. They are not coming back because they want to build something real. They are coming back because they don't want to lose the one person who proved they could make someone care without giving anything in return. And once you understand that, you can stop falling for the illusion. You can stop believing that their return means they've changed. You can stop giving them the chance to manipulate you again. So if you're dealing with an avoidant who suddenly wants you after you accepted their rejection, understand this: your acceptance made you scarce. Scarcity triggered their ego and pride. Their mind says, if they don't need me, maybe I need them. And that's when the narcissist pattern kicks in. They pull away to test you. They push you away to make you chase. And when you finally stop chasing, they panic. They panic because their control is gone. They panic because the emotional power they relied on is gone. And they panic because they realize they might actually lose you for good. But the choice is yours. You can choose to fall back into the same cycle, or you can choose to stay unbothered, stay aware, and protect your heart from the same manipulation again. The real reason they return is not because they changed. It's not because they finally realized they love you. It's not because they had a moment of clarity and decided to commit to you. The real reason they return is far more calculated and far more dangerous. They return because they fear losing control. They return because the emotional power they had over you is slipping away, and they don't know how to handle the fact that they may no longer be the one dictating the terms of the relationship. They return because they want the power back. They want to reclaim the control they once had, the control they've always relied on to make you feel uncertain, desperate, and emotionally dependent. That's why they come back. That's why they reach out after you've accepted their rejection. They are not returning because they've suddenly become emotionally available. They are returning because they are panicking. They are returning because this scarcity you created has triggered their ego and pride, and now they need to regain their position. They need to remind you that they still hold the key. They need to remind you that they can still make you feel something intense. They need to remind you that they can still make you chase. And the moment they feel that you might actually walk away for good, they rush back into your life, trying to rewrite the story. But the truth is, their return is not a sign of growth. It's a sign of fear. It's a sign that they are losing the emotional grip they once had. It's a sign that they are realizing for the first time that they might not always be able to control you, and that realization terrifies them. That's why the moment they return is the most dangerous moment in the entire cycle. When they return, you feel tempted to go back. You feel the old pull. You feel the familiar longing. You feel the desire to believe that this time will be different. You want to believe that they've finally changed. You want to believe that they finally realized what they lost. You want to believe that they're finally ready to love you the way you deserve. But this is the moment you must remember the truth. They only return when you stop giving them attention. They only return when you show you're not dependent, because that's the only time their ego is threatened. That's the only time they feel the fear of losing you, and that fear is what drives them to come back. They come back not because they miss you, but because they miss the feeling of being in control. They miss the sense of superiority they feel when they know you're still emotionally attached. They miss the thrill of knowing that you are still invested, And when you stop being invested, they panic. They panic because their power is gone and they don't know how to get it back. So they return, hoping to regain the upper hand. They return, hoping to reignite the chase. They return, hoping to make you feel the same desperation you once felt. And if you respond, if you chase back, if you give them your attention again, you are playing right into their hands. You are letting them back into the driver's seat. You are allowing them to rewrite the narrative. And that's exactly what they want. It's important to understand that avoidants don't return because they're ready for a real relationship. They return because they want to test you again. They return because they want to see if you'll fall back into the same pattern. They return because they want to see if you'll let them pull you back in without any consequences. They return because they want to see if you're still emotionally available to them. And the moment you show even a hint of weakness, they will use it. They will use your hope, your longing, your vulnerability, and your need for closure. They will use it to regain control. They will use it to make you feel like you still need them. And that is the trap. That is the moment you must stay strong. That is the moment you must remember that your value is not determined by their attention. Your worth is not defined by their approval. Your peace is not dependent on their presence. When they return, you must ask yourself, are they coming back because they love you, or are they coming back because they fear losing you? The truth is, avoidants are not built for commitment. They are built for emotional distance. They are built for emotional safety. They are built for maintaining control. They are built for avoiding vulnerability. And when you accept their rejection and move on, you remove the emotional safety net they've been hiding behind. You remove the distance they've been relying on. And that's when they start to feel exposed. That's when they start to feel the fear of losing something they never truly had. And that fear is what drives them back into your life. They return because they don't want to lose the emotional leverage they once had. They return because they don't want to lose the thrill of knowing you're still chasing. They return because they want to feel powerful again. And if you allow them back in without boundaries, you will hand that power back to them. You will allow them to use you again. You will allow them to repeat the same pattern. And that's why the moment they return is so dangerous. So when they come back, don't fall for the illusion. Don't let your emotions blind you. Don't let your desire for closure or validation push you back into the cycle. Remember the truth. They return, not because they've changed, but because they fear losing control. They return because they want the power back. They return because you finally stopped giving it to them. And the moment they return is the moment you must stand strong, stay unbothered, and protect your peace. Because your worth is not determined by their attention, and your happiness is not dependent on their return. When they come back, you have a choice. You can either let them back in and repeat the cycle, or you can choose yourself, choose your healing, and finally break free from the manipulation. The choice is yours. The truth they don't want you to know is this: when you accept their rejection, you become the prize. It sounds almost impossible because you've been taught to believe that the prize is the one who is chased, the one who is pursued, the one who begs and pleads for love. But in the world of avoidants and narcissists, the prize is actually the person who refuses to play the game. The moment you accept their rejection, you step out of the role they've been using you for. You step out of the emotional puppet position. You step out of the constant cycle of validation and disappointment. And that's when they realize something that terrifies them. They can't handle the fact that you have boundaries. Boundaries are a threat to their entire system. Boundaries mean you're not available on demand. Boundaries mean you won't tolerate their games. Boundaries mean you're no longer giving them the emotional power they've been feeding off of. And for an avoidant, that is deeply unsettling. Avoidants are built to avoid discomfort. They are built to avoid intimacy. They are built to avoid emotional responsibility. So when you set boundaries, you're forcing them into a situation they don't know how to handle. You're forcing them to confront a truth they've been hiding from, that their behavior has consequences. Avoidants are experts at creating distance, but they are not experts at dealing with someone who refuses to be controlled. That's why boundaries scare them. Boundaries mean you're not willing to tolerate their emotional withdrawal. Boundaries mean you're not willing to accept being treated like an option. Boundaries mean you're not willing to accept their silence as an explanation. And that threatens their ego because it removes the safety net they've relied on for so long. They've always known that no matter how far they push you away, you'll still come back. They've always known that no matter how cold they act, you'll still try to fix it. But when you stop, when you accept the rejection, when you move on, they suddenly realize that you're not an endless supply. You're not a backup plan. You're not someone they can use to feel good about themselves. You're a person with self-respect, and that's the moment you become the prize. That's the moment they start wanting you again. Not because they love you, but because they can't stand the fact that they've lost control. They can't stand the fact that you've become someone they can't manipulate, and that is the truth. They don't want you to know. Your boundaries are your power, and your acceptance is your freedom. When you accept the avoidance rejection, you don't lose them. You don't fall apart. You don't become broken or abandoned. You don't become the person they can walk all over anymore. Instead, something unexpected happens. You finally become untouchable because you stop giving them the power to control your emotions, your worth, and your reality. You stop chasing the approval you've been starving for. You stop begging for what they were never willing to give. And in that moment, you step into your true power. You become the one who chooses, not the one who pleads. You become the person who understands that their absence is not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their fear of commitment, their fear of vulnerability, and their fear of losing control. So if you're watching this and you're still waiting for them to come back, hear me clearly. Your worth is not determined by someone who refuses to show up. Your value is not measured by their attention. You don't need their validation to feel whole. The moment you accept their rejection is the moment you break the cycle. The moment you choose yourself is the moment they realize what they lost. And that's when the game changes. That's when they feel the pull. That's when they start wanting you again. But this time, you're not desperate. This time, you're not chasing. This time, you're unbothered. And that's the real power. Because the avoidant doesn't want love. They want control. And when you stop giving them control, you become the prize they can't win. So stand firm. Stay strong. Stay unbothered. And remember, when you accept the avoidance rejection, you don't lose them. You finally become untouchable.